You've got enemies. Be careful. It's true in life that you've got some enemies. You've got enemies right now. But underlying all of your enemies is one enemy that we know of very well from the scriptures, and that is the devil. And the scriptures want us to be very aware of the devil. And there's a reason for that. Because if you're ever in a battle, if you're ever in a fight, and you don't even realize that there's another fighter, you're not going to do well in that battle. You have to know that there's another fighter. You have to know that the other fighter is formidable for you to take it seriously and then be able to do battle with the enemy in a way that you win. So the scriptures say, for example, in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places." In short, you've got an enemy behind it all. He's active in your life, and if you're a believer, he wants to take you down. If you're a non-believer, he wants to keep you just that way. So I want to share with you today a wonderful transcript from a radio broadcast. From a radio broadcast, not from a month ago or a year ago. It's actually from a radio broadcast made in 1965 by a commentator named Paul Harvey. In his day, Paul Harvey was very popular for being very insightful about the things that were going on in life and in the world. I want to share with you this transcript because you'll see that even though it was written in 1965, it is just as true today as it was then. It's extremely insightful about how the devil wants to work in your life, or also in your family, or in this country, in this culture. So I want to share with you and read it to you word for word, exactly what he said, so that you become perhaps just a little bit more aware of the schemes of the devil, how he works, the fact that he's working so hard against you and your life and your culture. In fact, in verse 10 and 11 in Ephesians 6, we read this: "Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil." The scriptures tell us the devil is a formidable foe who has schemes against you. That means detailed, thought out plans, so that in order for you to win against this enemy, you need to put on the full armor of God and be fully aware of your enemy and his schemes. So listen to these words then of Paul Harvey, so insightful about the schemes of the devil. Again, 1965, but very relevant to today. His transcript is titled, "If I Were the Devil." This is what he said: "If I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness. I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set out about however necessary to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, 'Do as you please.' To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And to the old I would teach to pray after me, 'Our Father which art in Washington.'" And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. You begin to see what schemes there really are against you. And you begin to see how important it is to realize our struggle is not against flesh and blood. He continues, if I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect the discipline of emotions. Just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon, I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the House of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbols of Easter an egg and the symbols of Christmas a bottle. Do you see how important it is that we as believers are putting on the full armor of God? He goes on, if I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what do you bet? I could get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes and hard work in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus, I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. He concludes with this line. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey, good day. If you're a person out there and you're saying to yourself, I don't believe in the devil, that's old-fashioned. If you're saying, I know, the devil, that's just, that's so archaic. It's so silly. What a foolish belief. Or you think maybe he's just kind of harmless, like someone in a little red suit. Friend, that's not at all the case. There's a real devil. There's a real spirit being who fell. He's got a score of angels who fell with him that are now called demons. They're real. He's coming after your life. And if you're not a believer, his number one goal is that you stay just that way. That you stay just that way. And he wants that to happen. And his goal is to tear apart your life, your family, this country, because he's very, very real. And if you're a believer, but somehow your Christianity is half-hearted, it's sort of like, it's an okay thing to do. It's something you think about every now and then, or what have you. It's just kind of wishy-washy. If it is, realize this. You've got a bit of a problem. And this is why. Because you have an adversary who's not half-hearted about you. So if you're half-hearted about him, or you're half-hearted about God, he will win. because he's all out. He's not half-hearted at all. He's all out against you. So let me read to you Ephesians chapter 6 again, this time verse 13. It says, "Therefore, take up the full armor of God, so that you will be able to resist in the evil day, and having done everything, to stand firm." Friend, believer, realize this spiritual battle stuff is real. If you're not a believer, come to the faith right now. Receive Christ into your life and start living for Him with all you've got. And if you're a believer, but it's been kind of a half-hearted thing, today, let your commitment be full on for God. Because that's what it means to stand firm. That's what it means to put on the full armor of God. That's what it means to not be deceived by your enemy. I truly hope you've loved being with us today. We take a look at other issues throughout the week. Every Wednesday we publish a new devotional, and I hope you'll take a look at each one of those. Every Sunday we publish a new question, and I hope you'll look at all of those. Because part of standing firm and part of the full armor of God is you'll learn everything you can about what God wants for your life. Let's do that. Let's be all out and let's stand firm. Let's learn everything God wants us to know. Thank you for joining with us, making this channel a regular part of you standing firm. And remember, for every question, there's always an answer.